Welcome to the Kids with Big Emotions podcast. I am your host, Andi Clark, and today we have with us Courtney Hobbs. I met Courtney at an event, and as soon as I heard what Courtney did, I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to hear all the stories. I want to hear all about this. Courtney, I'm going to let you talk about what it is that you do and why you started it.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for having me. And I feel the same. When we chatted, I knew, oh, there's a connection here. We definitely have similar heart-led businesses that want to help moms, parents, kids, all the things. So I am a storytelling coach, and I primarily work with moms. MotherTelling is a branch of my business where I specifically help women share true stories of motherhood live on stage. And what this allows for women to do, for moms to do, is to come together to share, connect, celebrate all that it means to be a mom, and just really feel seen, heard, and validated in all of the challenges and the triumphs of motherhood. And this vision came to me after my first daughter was born. She was a premature baby, so she came a month early. She was a good size, she was healthy, but we had to spend about 2 weeks in the neonatal intensive care unit. And I that's not how I thought motherhood would start for me. It was isolating, lonely, confusing, scary. And it was the moms who showed up for me that really helped me through that. So their messages, their DMs, all of their emails, just sharing their stories of being NICU moms specifically. I mean, motherhood in general, but those NICU moms, I knew they got it. And instantly I felt seen, heard, and understood. And I thought, we have to bring moms together. And I'm a teacher by education. I taught for a number of years, and drama was one of the subjects. And so for me, that performance element of, that confidence boost of sharing your story out loud in front of people, there's something really magical that happens when you do that. And so the vision came to me then. It took me a number of years to go with it, as sometimes big visions do. And now we're here. We're here, ready for our second annual event. So.
Amazing. Yeah. And that's one of the things. Well, actually, there's two pieces to what you just said. There's one is I'm always putting you're not alone, because we all feel we are going alone in our journey, which ties in the second piece is we were pulling out clips from the somebody that I recently interviewed. And one of the clips was about how you're not alone. You're just not speaking of it. It's your silence that's keeping you alone. And that was when I read that. I'm like, oh, this is a good clip. And because it is, your silence is keeping you alone. As soon as we start talking about it, as soon as we start talking about how even I don't like how pregnancy feels, it's not this big, glowing, great feeling, which it is to some people, but many it's not. And we keep quiet because we feel, oh, I'm the only one that feels this way. And then we get kids that are different, or like with my first one, where I thought I had it. I knew how to do this after the first one. And then I had a second one, and he went, hey, yeah, you know what? We're going to throw you for a loop, and everything you thought you knew is not going to work on me. And you feel all alone. You're like, do people struggle like this in raising their kids? And then they become neurodiverse, or they have big emotions, or they're highly sensitive, or there's health issues. And there's all of these things that happen. And it's so amazing that once we actually start talking about it and getting in front of the right people, we start realizing, oh, there's big communities of people that have experienced this, and you're not alone. So I love what you're doing.
Thank you. Everything you just said, I mean, I got shivers when you quoted that guest that you had, because it's so true. We hold it in, we think we're alone, but once we start sharing, we realize, oh, and the beauty I find with storytelling is, even if we've not experienced the exact same thing, there are similarities woven into every mother's story that we can relate to on some level. So it's not, if I don't have a child who was diagnosed with autism, but I can listen to someone's story as she goes through that. And I have similar doubts as a mom that she had as a mom. We might have been on a little bit of a different path with our children and their needs, but I can still relate to a lot of the things she's saying, right? So
And if you're also, I'm making an assumption, like you're speaking in front of a group that isn't necessarily full of all the people that are experiencing that. So you need to word this story in a way that they're going to connect. And when you do that, it helps you learn how to say it in a way that others will understand, in words that others will understand. And quite often, when we are also out there not understanding another parent or judging them or whatever it is out in public, we're not able to connect with them. We're now able to connect because we've been able to see it through their eyes, but in a language that we understand as somebody who's not experienced it.
Absolutely. And that's partly what my job is with working with the moms. So they do a 10-week program to prepare to speak on stage. I don't just throw them out there. And that is part of it. We use storytelling techniques to entertain and engage the audience so that we keep them listening. And so you're right that we have this bigger reach. So people, you're not using jargon or language that, only people like, because I'll say the NICU and people who have been there understand what I mean, but people who don't. So I'm trying to remember to say the neonatal intensive care unit, because it's not, people who have been in it know it, but other people don't.
Yeah. And
And
that's a big thing I'm learning. Huge piece I'm learning, because I say neurodiverse a lot. And I'll even talk to people, I'm like, oh, you're so neurodiverse. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I was just speaking, it was hilarious. I was speaking at the end of January in Puerto Rico for this, like all these CEO tech people that had like exited their company. You don't grow a huge multi-million billion-dollar company and exit it if you're not neurodiverse. If your brain doesn't think out of the side of the box in order to be able to create such a business that can grow and scale like that, you just don't. And I remember saying to them, I'm so excited to be in a group of neurodiverse people. They're like, we're not neurodiverse. I'm like, oh, goodness. And that's where I'm like, I need to change my wording sometimes too, because I'm assuming as well that people are coming into this community knowing what neurodiverse is, and they don't. They
it's
don't.
so true. Or even remembering to add in like a short definition of how you view it or you see it, I think is important. But yeah, absolutely. You're right. Like
Yeah.
somebody might take offense to that if they have a different understanding of what that means, right? So
Yes. Okay, so I wasn't even thinking we'd go in this direction with today, but this is amazing. This is so what moms need to know. Can we go through some of the tips or tricks that you would help somebody who keeps, okay, first off, we don't know that we're saying these words. So let's
mm,
even start there. We don't even know that we're saying words that other people don't understand. They're in our words. They're in our world of autism or neurodiverse, or like you had said, somebody like had a deaf child, or like we
mhm.
start using all these acronyms and these words and we don't realize it. So first off, how do you help them notice that they're doing that? And then the second piece on that is, how do you help them rephrase that in words others will understand?
Great question. So initially, it's a brain dump. We just write everything out from the story that we think we're telling or that we want to tell. And it's, again, just saying it however you would say it, or writing it down however you would write it down. I tell my storytellers, you can record it like a voice note, you can write it by hand, you can type it, like it's up to you. And then we get really clear on what the story is that we're trying to tell. And so then we figure out what we need and what we don't need. As far as the actual language goes, once it's out and you have a coach or an outsider, a friend who's maybe not in the community, have them read through it and put those question marks of, I don't know what this means, or what's this acronym stand for, or explain this to me. And I know this is not a mom example, but I had a client, like a one-on-one client I was working with, who is discussing a story about her dog and dog shows. And there was a lot that I was like, oh, you're going to have to do some educating through your storytelling. How can we do that? Let's figure out some creative ways. So then that's when storytelling tips and tricks and techniques can kind of come into play. So weaving in educating through showing somebody what it's like. So explaining like, or even through emotions, I should say. I'm trying to bring it back to like a parenting example, but how did you feel when you were being given that diagnosis? Take us into the emotions, the senses. What were you hearing? What were you feeling? What were you smelling? really bring the audience, the listener, into that moment with you, because that's what we can connect with. We can connect with that feeling of, oh my gosh, perhaps it's the thoughts of something's wrong with my child, or will my child ever be normal or live a normal life? Those thought processes we can all relate to without knowing that you had a psychoeducational assessment and that they were given this diagnosis and this diagnosis, that have like ADHD and on the spectrum and this, whatever the words are. Because again, I'm not the expert on that, but give us how you feel in that moment. Place us in that seat as a vulnerable parent who's scared and confused. Bring us there. And as an audience member, we can then understand a bit better. You can then do a little bit of educating as the story unfolds, but if we can relate to the emotions, you've got us hooked, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think of how to help a parent who's in a situation where somebody, and this is the thing though, is sometimes, I mean, it has to be with somebody who wants to understand as well sometimes. So if you are in a situation, okay, you're a teacher. We're going to throw out the word IEP, which not everybody knows, but an individual education plan, which is where when a child does have a certain diagnosis, they can fill out this form for the school, for the teachers, to be able to have some supports for this child. And quite often, I think we go into those meetings kind of saying this is what they need and not having the emotions there. Would it make a difference, do you feel, if they were better storytellers or able to really say it in a way? Because there's so many different diagnoses, there's so many different ways that these kids need help and support, that if they were to do it in a more storytelling way, that it would be able to help the teachers understand a little more what this child needs. I don't know.
No, I love this. I love this. Okay. Do you mean as in like the CERT? I mean, to use a, like the special education resource teacher, their explanation of it, or the psychologist, or the parent, or the kid, like
Well, we
any of the above, I
unfortunately
guess.
we can't, unless somebody here is an education resource teacher. It's more the parents that are listening to this. So do I feel that honestly, if the resource teacher, like I know when I first went through this, had somebody actually explain this to me with emotions and all of that as to like really what was going on, I would have like been like, oh, that makes so much sense. But when they're using acronyms and terms and this type of a meeting and that you need to book this type of meeting, I'm like, what's that type of a meeting? What is this one for? I don't understand this. What's an IEP? Like, it took me a while to understand and get my head around an IEP versus a 504 and all of these things. And I was like, what the heck are all these things? So I do feel that it would be helpful for the parent, but we can't, unfortunately, in this situation, help the parents that way. But we can kind of go the other way, where the parent is sometimes coming at them, and maybe they don't know the jargon or anything per se, but if they were able to come out with a little bit more of a story of how something helped the child, or an explanation and examples of how a certain tool or way of dealing with their child helped in a, not in a, I'm frustrated and something needs to be done to help this child tone of voice, but in a calm, engaging storytelling way.
Okay, I love this. And I'm going to draw on my experience as a teacher. So my best experiences with students who had IEPs were when either they themselves, because I always tried to get kids to, because I taught high school, I tried to get them to advocate for themselves. Well, and because I taught high school, I sometimes didn't have the same support from parents, or sometimes you just don't. But what I would always ask is, like, what does that look like for you? Like, what does some of this, like, I would try to chat with them and just say, what does this look like for you? Is this you needing to leave? Is it tears? Is it a blow up? Like, what does that look like for you? And then what do you need to help you with this? So is that some headphones in? Is that to go for a walk? Is that to bounce a ball? Is that whatever it was? That was always helpful. And so the parents could do that too. I had a few key parents that like pop into my mind right away that were, this is what it looks like when he's frustrated, or this is what it looks like. He shuts down. He will just disengage when he's not understanding it. And then I would be able to see that behavior and know, okay, that's what that means. Because when you have a classroom of, like, my max was 27 in my open classes, or 30 if I was teaching English. When you have that many kids and there's always interruptions and this happening and announcements and whatever, it's hard to see that and know what it means fast. It takes some time. And especially with high school, you're semestered. So I would have them for 5 months and then they'd be gone. And then I'd have a whole new group for 5 months. So I wanted to get to know them and their behaviors on how I could support them faster. So them, the parents or the kid explaining, this is what it looks like, that was really helpful for me, because some kids would have an outburst and I'd be like, I don't know really what's happening. Are they frustrated? Are they angry? Did they have a fight with, like, I don't know. And sometimes people don't know, but it was just helpful if I was like, oh, I think that I know what's happening right now. Okay, I know how to handle this better, more calmly, more focused, whatever. So
Amazing. No, that is super helpful because we don't always know. And just having those two questions. So if a parent can say, this is what it looks like you might see this in my child. This happens when they are feeling this way, and this way. And this is how we've found best to support them when this happens.
yeah.
That would be great for the communication. Yes. No, I love that.
I think the other thing I've really learned because now I'm supply teaching, so I don't teach full time anymore because I do my business, but I still am in classrooms supply teaching. And I take a lot of special education calls because I love those classes and it's fun. But lean on like the EAs when I go in as a teacher. There's always EAs, educational assistants, in those classes. And I do the same thing with them. So sometimes I have to read like a safety plan for a specific student, and I will say to them, what does this look like for that kid? Because some kids are nonverbal. They can't talk to me depending on the class. And yeah, I'll ask the other experts in the room. Like I say, I'm a visitor in your class. Can you tell me what this looks like? And I think that's important. Say anybody who's coming in to do a guest talk or visiting a school or a classroom or a room where there's people with any sort of special need, lean on the people who are with them all the time. And so that I ask those same questions to the EAs. When it says like this behavior, what does that look like? What should I look for?
Yeah. No, that's so great. I love that. I love that. No, that's amazing and super helpful because as parents, we don't always, sometimes we're so in the moment. We're so in the trenches of everything. And we know what it looks like. We may not even, it depends on what stage we're at. We don't know how to support them during that, or we may be at that stage where we do understand at home, but it may not even be the same supports at school. That being said, though, the more information that we can gather, we can give them, that sometimes we take for granted as a parent how much information we actually know.
You are so right. The parents are the experts. Parents know so much. You know your kids so well. You're the greatest advocate. The things, yeah, you're right though. The things that you don't even know that you know sometimes, but that's why some prompting questions by people who are working with your kid are really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's a good question, I'm just thinking as a parent, if somebody asks you a good question, like write that down, have that saved so that you can answer the question even if somebody doesn't ask, because that
Yeah.
could be helpful.
No, absolutely. And that's where I was saying, like, I'm thinking even at the start of the year, just having something for the teacher of, this is what this looks like.
Mhm.
This is the emotions that happen. This is, what supports we found at home or in past years with other teachers has helped. It's not at all saying you have to do this. This is where it is. It's like, it's kind of like non forcefully giving them the information that even if they don't want to listen, if they've heard it and then they see it, there might be a connection for them that goes, oh, that parent was trying to help me. I mean, these teachers are tired. They've got so much on their plate. There's so much going on. As you're saying, like, you can't know and see and do everything all at
Mhm.
once. Like, it's really hard, really hard. I
It
mean,
is. I will say, if there's any teachers or guidance counselors listening, we often at the school that I taught at, which I thought was brilliant, we would have transition meetings for any kids that needed extra support. It wasn't for every kid that had an IEP, but certain kids, you would have the 4 teachers they had in semester 1, and you'd have a transition meeting for the 4 teachers they had in semester 2. Often the parent was there, sometimes the kid was there, and it was awesome because it was like, this is, what helped last semester, this is what can help this semester. Yeah, it was very interesting. As a drama and dance teacher, I often saw a different side of a kid when like they were in a math class, the math teacher saw one side of them, and then I saw them differently in drama, and often it was better. I taught classes that had them up and moving and being creative, and like that is rooted in my heart as like really, really important, and it should be woven into every subject. However, anyway, I felt like a really beautiful side of kids because they had that opportunity to move their bodies and to be creative and play. And I think kids of any age and if people of any age need that more in their life. And so anyway,
I'm
it
also
was
just going to
funny.
say from what I do know of you that there is this little fairy dust that you kind of sprinkle on them as well, that I am sure that had you been teaching them in math or had you been doing any of those other subjects too, you would have also seen another side of them that maybe some other teachers
Uh,
would not have. Yeah, they're probably
well,
very
thank you.
too. So let me ask as well, just with schools and you being a teacher, have you seen a change through the years? There's been more and more studies on screens and how screens are affecting kids' focus, kids' inhibition, the ability to pause and think about their actions before they're taking them on. There's attention, their perception, the way that they're perceiving things. These are all base skills of what I speak of a lot as the executive functioning system. And we're finding that research is starting to come out more and more that even if a child doesn't have struggles with this, once there are more and more screens, and I'm a huge screen advocate, my kids homeschool on screens. I'm not saying no screens ever. I'm just saying understanding how and when and how it works in the brain. But are you finding that through the years that some of these things have been changing with kids in the class?
I partly feel unqualified to answer this only because I've been out of teaching full time for 7 years now. And I see a different side as a supply teacher. It's a little bit different. They often get like computer work, desk work, things that they have to do. So I don't see it day to day in and out. I will say there's a lot of heads down, phones, like phone focus, even in the hallways, at lunch, you just see kids, like 5 of them sitting together, all on their phones. But I will also say you see a lot of kids who are socializing, just like I remember when I was a kid,
Yeah.
when before we had, I think I got my first emergency cell phone that didn't text or anything when I was in grade 10. So, so yeah, I feel like they are still socializing, but they're on screens a lot. Like teachers use them as tools. Every kid has a Chromebook now,
You're amazing.
um,
What
and
do you do? Yeah.
I agree. It is amazing. And I used to use screens, like, especially in drama and dance, like a lot for rehearsal. I'd be like, you need to watch yourself. I tell this to my storytellers now as adults. I'm like, you have to listen to yourself and you have to watch yourself, like watch your mannerisms. You might have a weird quirk that you don't know you do that you don't want to be doing, like, but you have to watch yourself do that. And so we often had we would take videos of kids so they could see this is where your spacing's off on your dance, or this is why your blocking doesn't work in this tableau, which is like a frozen picture. Anyway, so I always tried to, sorry, now I'm going off on a bit of a tangent, but one of my first lessons as a teacher was always, I'd be like, get your phones out. We're going to learn how to use our phones as a tool and a resource and not just as like a distraction method. And so I would open your calendar settings. Okay, this is how you're going to put something in your calendar, and I'd make them put something in their calendar. Open your reminders. And I give them like a task to like, when you get home, it's going to remind you to get this for Miss Hobbs. And so I always tried to just instill that in them. Like, it's a great tool. It's a computer in your pocket. Like, how cool are we to be able to be living in this? but it doesn't also have to control our lives, right? So
Yeah. No, and that's the thing. It's that balance. And I find with screens that it's one of these things where it's with, I guess, with alcohol and with all these other things where we, and even like healthy eating, unless you're taught how to eat healthy, you don't know how to eat healthy. And because screens are newer-ish, we
mhm.
haven't been taught how to have proper screen hygiene, right?
Yes.
So that's the thing. It's not that they're bad. It's just that we haven't taught how to use them in a way that won't pull our brain in and decrease our attention and our focus and our perception and our inhibition. That's all. It's not that they're bad at all. So it's just fascinating because I have spoke with other teachers and stuff like that, and they are noticing, yeah, there's more kids in my class with attention struggles now. There's more kids with inhibition. And I just wonder if it's just that we're in this transition period
Mhm.
of screens coming out, and now we're learning, like there's all these pros, and now we're just seeing some of the ways that we need to be cautious or careful or learn some different habits around them. And once we instill and learn those habits, then it becomes like this crazy awesome thing again, right? And so we're just seeing we're in that transition period is all.
I agree with you on that. The other thing that I would add, so in between leaving teaching and starting my MotherTelling storytelling business, I ran a personal training space, a wellness studio. And that was kind of what transitioned me out. I had taught for a gym, fitness classes for many years. And it was just like an easy transition out of teaching. And I think also jumping off of like what I had said before about teaching dance and seeing kids move their bodies, I think that is one thing that's missing. Like the screens allow us to sit, right? Like we can sit and be on our phone. We can sit and play a video game. We're sitting at the computer traveling the world, but we're sitting doing it. And I think movement is a key piece to that. Like I love like a virtual reality idea because you can be moving, while you're in this other world playing the video game, but you're moving your body. And as we all know, movement is so good for our brain, for our development, for our mental health, for our physical health, for our endorphins, all those things. I think movement is a key thing that comes with the bad habits around, or the not so good habits around too much screen time, if
Yeah,
I can impart
absolutely. No, I think that does bring it in too. All right, so let's go back to your storytelling. So these women, they spend 10 weeks, which I'm sure there are so many breakthroughs in just in themselves during those 10 weeks. And then they speak on stage and go over that absolutely scary, scary moment.
yes.
What are things that they're saying after? I'm imagining in my mind that they're saying, wow, I realize there's like community out there, and just how much they're healing and realizing that that silence that they had before was like how that silence was debilitating them,
Mm-hmm.
and breaking that silence and breaking through and having a voice.
Well, you were right on when you said healing. The journey itself is extremely healing. Sharing your story, saying it out loud is healing. I always say this journey will be therapeutic. It's not therapy, and you should maybe have a therapist on your side depending on the topic of your story, but it's definitely therapeutic. And that all comes with this saying it out loud. It allows us to feel worthy, that our voice matters, our story matters, and then getting that feedback from people who are listening and getting something out of your story, feeling seen, heard, understood, validated. Like that comes back to you. So all of a sudden, it's a realization that your story is a beacon of inspiration to someone, at least one person, if not a whole room of people. And that's empowering. And so what I've seen from my storytellers is this confidence to continue sharing stories in whatever capacity that is, whether that's a motherhood story or the confidence to give a toast at a birthday party, or to just to use their voice for change, for good, for inspiration, just to use their voice, period.
Yeah. And I think we don't, it's been told, like the generation of my parents was to not talk about your health issues, not talk about your struggles. And that was a sign of strength in their generation. And it's interesting seeing that flip side as we're going through things, that now it's actually showing strength in talking about your struggles, in talking about health concerns, different things, is actually showing a strength in us if it's done in the right way. It's not like we're in the middle of a muck and we're everything, it's just everything's imploding around you and your brain is imploding, and the stuff that you're saying, maybe other people that are involved in that story are not, we're not throwing other people on the bus, we're not doing anything. It's being told in a way that is coming from a healed place in them. And we do have to get to that other side before we can start telling those stories in a way that people will be open to listening to and making change and sparking that peace in somebody's heart.
You're absolutely right. So I chat with every storyteller, especially for the MotherTelling stage, because they're speaking in front of a crowd, and I don't know if screen's the right word, but just have a conversation to make sure that they are prepared to tell a story from a scar and not an open wound, is what I always say, because you're absolutely right. Like, it's not fair to them, to the audience, to us in the program, if they're just a blubbering mess with like because they weren't prepared to tell the story. And the program itself helps to prepare them, because we get it out, we say it lots, we practice, we rehearse, we work out the emotion. Not that the emotion doesn't still show up, but because there's still emotion, but it's like you're through that sobbing or whatever it is. So yeah, I definitely make sure the women coming into the program are coming from like a healed place, or they've done the work around it. And if not, I have no problem. Like, I'll say to them, you know what, I think you maybe need to talk with your therapist about this opportunity, or maybe it's not the right time. Maybe you just need some more space between the event, or whatever it is.
And there's no shame in that.
No,
Not
no,
at
no,
all.
no.
Like, oh gosh, right? There's no shame. We're all at different stages of our journey. And the fact that you're in the middle of the muck and want to be on that other side and want to get to that place says so much about that individual, that they want to help other people. And the first person, though, that we do need to heal in that journey is ourselves.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
That way we can have even more of an impact and be there to truly be able to support the others, because people will come up to you that are resonating with you. And if you're not yet in a place where you have the capacity and the bandwidth yet to be able to support those other people, and you need to be reserving that bandwidth to heal yourself, there's something powerful in that as well.
Absolutely. And I will say, it's everybody's journey is different. So my one storyteller, Anita, their stories are public on YouTube, so it's fine. Her daughter was diagnosed with autism in grade 2, maybe grade 3, doesn't matter, in and around that time. But her daughter is now 19 years old. And so Anita's story, I mean, we had to work really hard to I have a time limit on how long their stories can be. That's partly for entertainment. There's always restrictions when you're doing creative work. So anyway, but I was like, you're trying to do a whole lifetime of your child. So we need to pick out, the parts that work along with it. But my point to this is, she was ready to tell the story, and her 5-second moment, so this beautiful moment where she felt like, okay, we made it, was when her daughter crosses the stage at commencement. And it was just like, we all just felt, it was just so beautiful. But that's where Anita was at to tell this story. The timing was perfect for her to feel empowered enough and strong enough to potentially support other people going through maybe the diagnosis process, whatever it was, 15 years earlier than where she was at. But she had to be at that point. Whereas another storyteller that I had, Chris, her son was diagnosed with severe hearing loss. He was deaf, or he is deaf. He's, I want to say 5 or 6 now, and he was diagnosed at 18 months. She didn't need as long as Anita to be able to feel empowered and the strength to share the story. And that's for multiple different reasons, right? But we're all in our journeys at different places where we can share. Like, I wouldn't have been able to share about my daughter and my NICU experience with her right away, because it was small t traumatic. It was a lot. It was, it took me a lot of time to process. And I think that's part of why my daughter was born in 2018 and I launched this business in 2023. There was a number of other things that played into that, but I think the timing wouldn't have been right for me to get out of the hospital and be like, I'm ready to help people with their stories.
Yeah. Right. And that's it, that we do need to honor that we're all in different stages of all of this. And every stage is important because you need all of those stages in order to be able to have that story to tell.
Absolutely.
When you have the capacity and the energy and the bandwidth to be able to put that story together, yeah, in a way that can impact people, and you're able to then help to support the people that you are impacting.
Absolutely.
That's amazing. I love that. I do
I
so much.
do.
So, Courtney, I know you're in Ontario and Canada, where I am, and you do these 10 weeks and then they're on stage. So does everybody that works with you have to be where, like, come to you physically in person, or do you do anything with them online to help them with their stories if they don't live close by?
Yes. So there's some things coming up in the future where I'm trying to be a bit more virtual, and my big goal, I put it out into the world, is to have MotherTelling events like TED Talks. So there could be a MotherTelling event in Mexico. There could be a MotherTelling event in Spain. I don't know. I don't know. I'm clearly picking warm places because it's so cold here still.
Right? Did you just
But
get hit with the major snowstorm? You're like a couple hours
yes,
away. You got hit too. Yeah, I was just out
yeah,
shoveling before here from snow from a week ago.
I know. And there's like, where do you put the snow? Oh my gosh, it's wild. But yeah, so
You
my
live in a
big
bigger
goal,
area than me too. Sorry.
pardon?
I live right in the city where our streets are small and everything, and we have no room for the snow. I can't imagine. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, I get it. I feel grateful because we live on a street where we don't have a sidewalk, and so it's just like it's really nice for the snow. But yeah, so my goal, and so I'm working on a community, a virtual community where we can build our storytelling, and then I can have these micro events, these not so much the big main stage event I'm hosting in May, but micro events, I mean, all over the world. I'm going to start maybe all over Ontario as a start, but so that's coming in the next couple months. I also run online workshops and I do one-on-one coaching. So I've had a couple different one-on-one clients working for multiple different goals. So business owners looking to be better storytellers just through emailing and social media and on their website, that kind of thing. Others looking to do better at presentations. How can they weave a story into the facts that they have to share? How can they make it more relatable? How can we play with their PowerPoint so that we can weave stories in? And then I have like birthday parties, weddings, people who want help with just preparing their stories for those types of events. And so that's all done. Like, all my clients have been virtual for my one-on-one coaching.
Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I'm just
it's coming.
yeah, I'm imagining your like mini TED Talks thing. And it's just, mothers need it, right?
Yes,
Like, we just need to hear these stories that are to know we're not alone.
exactly. Yep. To be in that room with other people. I mean, that's when the vision kind of came to me. So did the words share, connect, celebrate. And that's been my three like main pillars, if you will, or my three main things that MotherTelling does. If we share, we can connect and we can celebrate all that it means to be a mother. And I think that that's so important. Being a mom's really hard.
It is.
The hardest job I've ever had. And to have time to celebrate that we've made it through hard moments and hard things, but also just to celebrate ourselves as being moms and we're out, we're having fun.
No, that's amazing. I love this. I love this for you. All right. If there is anything, like, what have we not covered that you feel that moms, parents out there need to hear that we haven't touched on yet?
One thing that I love, and I know I had shared this link with you for the 7-day challenge that I offer, the Daily Moments challenge is what I've called it, coined it. Essentially, I mean, the challenge is for you to build a habit, but it's collecting daily moments that are story worthy. So they can sometimes be hard, challenging, devastating moments, but they can also be fun, happy, lighthearted moments. And I have to tell you, since I have started this habit, it has felt like I have slowed down time. It's like I have these little celebrations sometimes at night, or reflections. It's not like a journal page. It is literally 1 to 2 sentences or a couple point forms of just moments in the day that I want to remember. And I got to tell you, it has helped me because our kids grow so fast and they change so much. And it's exciting to watch them grow, but it's also hard to watch them grow. And I just have found this daily practice of collecting my moments from the day has just really helped me feel like I'm slowing down time. And I just have this like cool reflection of these different points in, my mom life, that I can remember. That also, I hadn't thought about this, but my girlfriend actually brought this up to me. She's like, this is great. Like my kid can look back on this and remember certain things from their childhood that just like are these fleeting moments that sure, there's a few things that'll stick out that you remember, but you're not going to remember everything, even if you think you will. Like life goes fast and it's busy and there's a lot we're keeping in our brains. And so that is like one thing I'd love to gift to moms. Start a daily moment challenge for yourself, or moment habit, collecting story-worthy moments.
I have this really nice like notebook, and I'm like, I don't feel like journaling all the time and doing stuff, but
Yeah.
I can so think of a day. And there's a way with the way that the brain works that if you're actually looking for something, you start seeing it every day. It's phenomenal when you start doing that, that if every day you start looking for a bright moment with your child, a memorable moment, and it could be a tough moment once in a while too, that turns into a good story.
Absolutely.
It does, right? And yeah, if you could do that every day, because I thought I'd remember their first tooth, and now they'll ask me, when did I first do this? When did I first walk? I'm like, I don't know. I don't remember. I'm like, I just got through every single day and I'm alive. And that's just. Oh my gosh, I don't remember any of those things. And I didn't write them down. And I didn't that I actually they're my kids are at an age now where at 11 and 13 where I can breathe and actually do that at night. And I could have that beside my bed. I'm going to sign up for it. I'm going to. That's amazing.
Yes. Sign up. And I will, a little plug, because I've been working hard on it. I have 2 journals coming out that are guided to help you if you're a pen and paper kind of person. So the
Yeah.
challenge online is a spreadsheet, which some people love. That's generally how I do it, but I know some people are pen and paper. So I made 2 separate journals. One's sentimental and one's funny. Anyway, so I'll be sure. I just got them up onto Amazon. So I don't have a physical copy to show you, but
Okay. But if they sign up for your moments,
then
then
there's a link to the journals. Yeah.
then they're going to get a link in there as well. Sweet.
Yes.
Okay, that's so awesome. Because this is one thing is where like when we're going through the trenches with these kids too, and we're not ready to tell our stories and all of that yet. Like we're in the
Yep.
trenches. We need to find those moments. We need to,
Yep.
because we need to start training our brain to be finding those good moments or to be finding the funny and the bad, and
Yes.
to just honestly tell a story about how chaotic it was this morning, that what all spilt and what all happened and cat ran out of the house, whatever it is, right? Like you need
Yes.
to tell these things later on because you can look at it and go, and I'm still alive, and I survived, and look at how well we are now. Like we need to see those things as well. That, yeah, for anybody listening, I think this is such a great thing. Such a great thing. Oh, I'm so
Yeah.
grateful.
Thank you. No, I totally agree, because I feel like I'm going to use my daughter as an example. My second daughter was a terrible sleeper. She's Bedtime's a struggle, but now she sleeps through the night. She's 5. It's been a long time. And I've said to people, that is a story I'm not ready to tell yet because I'm still in it and it's still frustrating and hard and we're getting there. But I have all these like moments that I've been, tonight I was up at this time and this time with my daughter. And then I will have little like poems that I'll write, or like it's 3 a.m. and I'm like, this is going to be a good story at some point. So then it almost lightens it a little bit. And I'm like, this is story worthy. So I'm just going to let this happen, as opposed to being like, I haven't slept again. This is terrible. And I'm so tired.
Right.
It's a different way to look at it and a little bit more positive. Like, this is
I'm,
a good story.
yeah, I'm thinking this would be a great thing to put up at their wedding.
Yes.
Let me go through my journal.
Yeah.
There's this many nights that I was up with you. But it is hilarious too. You're saying if your kids go through and read it as well one day, then they'll be like, appreciate you.
I hope so.
Like, Mom, how are you still alive? Yeah. No, that's so awesome. I love this. I love this. I love this. All right. Courtney, this has been absolutely amazing. I'm so, so grateful that we were able to find the time to do this. I have in the show notes, I have your Instagram, your LinkedIn. I have this mom challenge that everybody can sign up for. And then you also have a podcast.
I
So
do.
those links will all be in the show notes. So anybody who's listening, if you want to get a piece of Courtney in your life on a regular basis, join her podcast and, oh my gosh, get her free mom challenge. I'm going to be doing it for sure. I'm so excited.
I
And
love it.
grab a little piece of Courtney.
Thank you, Andi, for having me. This has been, I didn't entirely know where it would go. And I love that we tapped into my teaching background, but also into the storytelling and how we can support moms. So thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Yeah, I never know what direction this is going to go either. Sometimes I have a plan and then somebody says something. I'm like, ooh, that's the direction we need to go. So yeah, this is just amazing.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. And to everybody listening, thank you so much for being here today. If you do have any questions or wanted to reach out to me, my links are in the show notes below as well. And my support circle is always, always there for any parents of kids with big emotions. It is full of other parents just like you, so you will not feel alone in there, and we will support you. That link is in the show notes. So we will see you in the next episode.